Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call before it hit the news. No clue what they were about to do. Hey, what's happening on this fine little Wednesday afternoon? It is the Finish This Fight podcast. 3:30 Wednesdays. We are coming at you Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Had a great show yesterday, and I am expecting an amazing show today. I had a chance to meet this young man this year back in, I think, February at CPAC. You know, guys, since God called me into this fight last year around July, and said, hey, things are going to be different, I thought I was just writing a song, and here I am in the middle of the dadgum battle and raising money and pulling people together. But since it's happened, I met some pretty interesting people. I want to tell you real quickly. Well, actually, let's just let him tell himself. I'm going to bring on this young man. Say hello to the Legoman, Mr. Robert Morse. What's up, my friend?
Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you again.
Yes, sir. It's been a minute or two.
Yes, too long. Well, I appreciate you giving me the chance to explain who I am and how we became friends, but I couldn't resist the show that you had going on live at CPAC, and you were stunned to learn that I was a January 6er and that I was responsible for the entire insurrection on January 6th because I planned it all with my Lego set.
That's right. You know what really got me was that beautiful hair, man, and I was wanting to borrow some.
Oh, yeah. There's a long line of people that want to borrow this hair, man.
You know what? So you're looking all fine, and I've got to always start my show with my man makeup on because it makes me about 25% more attractive. But let's get the actual eyes where I can see. Now we're playing the game, baby.
Yes.
Robert, talk to me, my friend. So we saw each other about 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that. And we got a chance. In fact, let me just throw that up. I think I might even have that. Look at here. This is where we met. Yeah, little Finish This Fight booth there at CPAC.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you had a young lady with you.
I hope your viewers can see it. I can't see it, and I hope.
Oh, you can't see it. Okay, so you had a young lady there with you, and I cannot remember her name, honestly. To be
honest. Jenny Heinel.
That sounds familiar. Yep. Yeah,
she's from Pennsylvania as well, and she was formerly married to the chief of the Pittsburgh FBI, who not only informed her of my raid, but then told her that the entire force that raided me felt absolutely guilty after coming after me because of how they had been warned that I was some kind of big league domestic terrorist. And after they invaded my property and took all my belongings, they discovered that I was a more honorable individual than they were. And the only thing that I had to hide was the love that I had for my country, my God. So, she elaborated on the story because she knew about me and my date of my arrest before anyone else did because of who she was married to.
Well, let's talk about that. So you're a former Green Beret, right?
Army Ranger.
Close, not close. I'm not going to take the beating that I would get if I say close in this community. So you're a former Army Ranger, had a lot of Rangers on, served this country, fought for this country, loved God, loved the country. May not really. You know what? You and I talked. I think we feel similar. That there was a point in our lives when we realized this is not the country that we fought for, though.
Well, yeah, I want to piggyback on that because it's very important for people to understand. A lot of people are giving up hope because they're condensing their love of America into one train of thought, which is incorrect. So I learned while I was incarcerated that a man can love his country three different ways. A man can love his country's land, a man can love his country's people, and then a man can love his country's government. These are three separate subjects and entities altogether. So, for example, I love my country's land. I wasn't there when it was either taken or stolen or whatever you want to call it. As far as I'm concerned, back in the day, if you took it and you kept it, there's nothing to apologize for. So, the land that America has today is something that I love and cherish, and I love the national parks. And the land didn't do anything wrong to me. Then you have the nation's people. Now, I know that there are some scumbags that are born and raised here in America, but as far as I can tell, we have the best people by and large that for the entire planet because we're the most generous, we're the most sacrificial, we are the demographic with on the world stage that wants to be like Christ the most. With the way that we take care of one another, the way that we band together, the way that we're capable of building a paradise in hell, which is a great book, by the way, we have the world's best people. But I am extraordinarily unimpressed with my nation's government. But that's only one out of the three categories that a man can love his country. So you can't give up on America just because you're extraordinarily disappointed in the government. You still got the land and you still got the people that love you and deserve to be loved and are worth fighting for. And so you use the other two to fix the third. And that's
Yeah,
what we're going to
absolutely.
do.
And I'm going to give you an amen on that. You just probably describe that more eloquently than I do when people ask about those things. I do love my country, but I love the people.
Right.
I would die for the people in a
Yep.
heartbeat. I would go out and do what had to be done to protect this land, this people, including the land. But the government now, we got some things we need. They need to go to the woodshed, and that's not going to happen quickly. It's not going to happen easily. It's going to take sacrifice, and
Yes.
it's a small percentage of the population of the land of the people that are willing to do that. And there's some reasons for that. I believe we've been programmed and trained to be very complacent in this country over the last 50 to 70 years. You go back to the boomers, and even prior to that, they were raised pretty tough, Robert.
Yeah.
They were raised working for a living. Their hands were dirty. They went through the Great Depression. They saw how bad things can get, and they were raised up tough. And they raised up.
The generation that I'm a part of was raised on how comfort can eventually kill. And so I get it, trying to raise your kids so that they don't have to endure the hardship and the sacrifice that you might have back in the day. But
Mhm.
now I'm living proof of the fact that everybody that tried to encourage the way that I should have been raised to stave off anguish and struggling and suffering actually handicapped my development. And I think it's the only thing that's kept me on point to the degree that I am is because I was a Boy Scout, because I weathered the elements as a youth, because I was a Ranger and had to actually understand what it's like to be in a position where someone's actively trying to take your life and to sit with that and then to try to make peace with that and move out accordingly. And so there's something to be said in reference to the way that a man is raised. This is why I love education. This is why I wanted to become a high school history teacher initially, because I'm a firm believer that there's more nurture involved in a man or just a society's development as the way that they think as opposed to nature. I'd like to think that if a man or a woman is exposed to honorable heroes and to a task that must be completed, perhaps at the expense of someone's safety or their comfort, at a bare minimum, it actually does a whole lot of good for that society and for that individual to suffer well. And now that I have gone through this January 6th experience, having suffered well, and this is the first time in my entire life I can look back at a chapter of my life and say, you know what, I think I did it right because I leaned on God, because I try to do what God would have asked me to do as often as possible. I know that I'm a better man for it. And so the times that are about to come, the difficult times were made by weak men. But these weak men that are making difficult times are going to make strong men. And you're looking at one. And my entire generation that was raised late 80s, early 90s, we're going to be the ones that put this world back together. And I know that Trump's going to kick things off for us, but when he hands the torch off to my generation, because of the garbage we've witnessed, I mean, you got to think about it. When I was in the third grade, I watched 9/11. So you
Mhm.
talking about conditioning, dude, there was no other trajectory for me to either be a weak little cowardly scumbag or someone that's going to have to step up to the plate. And so, I've chosen the latter and, philosophize my reason why I'm not going to ever accept the former.
You're similar age to my son. My son, I think, was 11 years old on 9/11. My daughter was 10. And so that's your similar generation. You just, some things that you just mentioned, though, and I want to kind of reiterate that. You're talking about growing up soft or growing up in a place where you were taught to avoid conflict and those kind of things. I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing of value in this world that comes easily.
No.
Take a diamond. I mean, it's caused through long time of pressure.
Yeah.
Take a pearl, same thing. It's got to go through pressure. There's nothing that's of any value that didn't have to go through something. And I tend to find in this world that the people that have value have gone through something and you have a choice when you go through it. Now, Robert, you had a choice. I think I told you my story. I had a choice. Yeah. I spent 73 days in 2 jail cells. Right. Not as long as you, but it was pre J6. And I had a choice. When I got out, I lost my home, my car, my business, and my eyesight in my right eye. And I could have just laid down and just quit.
Yeah.
Here's what I can tell you. Faith is found in the hard place. Mm-hmm. Faith is found in darkness, not where it's light and easy. But it's also—
that's where it's forgotten.
It is. And it's also ignored in the hard place if you've not been prepared for it, or if you're not open to God working through those things. There's many things. There was one of the worst sayings I think that the devil invented, and people have used over and over and over, is that God won't give you more than you can handle. And that's a crock of bull, my friend.
Yeah.
God hands you more than you can handle every daggum time that there's a test that takes place, because if we don't need him, then it's just us.
Right.
And it doesn't glorify him. And so, Robert, talk to me about that, man. Talk to me about that hard place.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I would say that the prosperity gospel is probably something that has ruined the faith of a lot of quote unquote Christians. A lot of people have walked away from the faith because they were told, once you accept Jesus Christ in your heart, your life is going to be fine. And that's actually wrong. The inverse is true. And but it's actually a badge of honor in a way that can be maintained and taken advantage of. Case in point, our Bible was written by prisoners. Our Bible was written by men and women who were chased and were harassed and were accosted and were locked up and killed. So this faith is not for the faint of heart. However, something that can be considered is that in reference to this faith, it actually provides an opportunity for you to understand suffering, because suffering is inevitable. Like it says in Proverbs, it rains on the good and the bad. But if the rain is to come, then perhaps we'll understand how to handle that rain better with our faith as opposed to without it. Because if the rain should come, then maybe we need to learn how to build an ark when that rain shows up, as opposed to just letting it rain and then, being miserable anyways. So
True.
I would argue that our faith actually helps out more than not. Our faith is something that can be weaponized, and that was the point of it all.
Well, and you actually said some pretty powerful words there. Stuff is going to happen. It's going to happen, good, bad, or indifferent person, Christian, not Christian. The world is around us, and there's stuff that's going to take place. I do believe there's probably more trials that happen when you're born again, trying to work the life and walk the life that God's got intended for you, and to take on the mission that he's got, because we're in a spiritual battle. Like right now, we're in a spiritual battle that's probably never been seen in anybody that's alive's lifetime. We are in a battle, and that means there's forces that's coming against us. So we're in a battle. It's not an easy thing. Faith is not for the weak, but I promise you it's worth it. I promise you it's worth it. God has used me in ways that I never thought possible. From an old country boy that didn't have a whole lot to offer, could sing a little bit, run a few businesses and things like that to where we are right now. Talk to me about your life, Robert. So you went through basic training, AIT, decided to become a ranger, and served for how long?
So I was in the Army for 4.5 years. I got out in December 2015 and moved to Pennsylvania to attend the fall semester of Penn State in 2016. That's also when Trump was running for president the first time. And I ended up becoming the chief of the Bull Moose Party, the club that we made on campus that had the guts to endorse Donald Trump for president, unlike the Republican club on campus, which was kind of
Oh,
pathetic. Yeah, but so that was frustrating. But my life into politics, I think, began officially there,
okay.
and at that point in time, I didn't really understand that, what Trump was doing was going to enact a spiritual conflict. And I don't really think that I was much of a Christian. I knew who Jesus was. I had been to church all my life, and I could incorrectly say that, I believed in God, but I don't think it was until I was forced to need God like I was in prison, um, until I really started to need him like my life depended on it, is when I would say that I was a Christ follower. I wouldn't even say that I'm a Christian today. I would say that I'm a Christ follower. I make mistakes every day.
Uh-huh.
But the interesting thing to consider, though, too, is that with the mistakes that I've made, it's compelled me to want to help others not make the same. So I used my education to become a high school history teacher. I saw the devastation of Afghanistan, and I noticed how my home could turn into the wasteland that Afghanistan was if the next
Uh-huh.
generation didn't know how to keep this republic. And so that compelled me to want to get my degree to become a high school history teacher. And I think this is why the feds came down on me as hard as they did, because I was in the classroom teaching students to love their country, to value their people, to understand their government, and to understand that their government is screwing them over left and right, to understand that we have the best people on the planet, and yet their people's history is hidden from them, so that they cannot capitalize on the examples of so many brave men and women that have come before us. And the land that we occupy, being warped and poisoned as it is a land that we earned and we fought for, and we defeated people to have it. And so they hated that. The satanic communists within the United States government wanted to expel me from the classroom. That's why even after I was presidentially pardoned, the Department of Education in Pennsylvania denied me my teaching credentials back, because they said that the presidential pardon wasn't enough, and they're willing to die on that hill. And so that's a whole nother story. But this is my response, and this is my reaction, and this is what I'm excited to talk about on your show,
Uh-huh.
is because they should have left me in that one classroom, because now I'm going to do something that is going to put me in millions of classrooms across the country, if not the world. I've launched my own film production company. We're
Uh-huh.
calling it Legoman Productions, and we're committed to providing an alternative for the next generation to see stories of men and women that really did exist back in the day, whose histories have been denied the exposure and the study of, so that the next generation doesn't just feel inspired to keep this republic, but wants to.
Right.
A lot of people have no idea what that means. A lot of people have never seen an example of it. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why there are no good movies right now. There's a reason why there are no good idols, is because the enemy is hoping that with everything else that they're doing, whether it's poisoning the food or trying to poison the minds of the youth through media, that there's no good people to look up toward. And so at Lego Man Productions, by the same name, if you go on our website with two G's, you'll find an initiative and projects that are faith-based, that are determined to reclaim our culture, to restore heroes, and to stop the death of the West. And
Uh-huh.
so it's very exciting. We're already working on a project that I wrote the script of while I was incarcerated. It's a story that I know that God blessed me with. And this is going to take the place of Braveheart and Patriot, and maybe even the Passion of the Christ, as sacrilegious as that might sound, because it's a story about what happened 2,000 years ago when other people were about to lose their republic too. And it's a story that hasn't been told deliberately so that no one would be as brave or as bold as this individual really was. And so that is the drive, that is the commitment. And we're doing this not just because we might make an impact on the youth, but because it is our response to the spiritual war that we have just rolled over and taken for the last however many years. The entire time that I've been alive, the West has just taken the abuse.
Yeah.
And I know that it is my job and the responsibility of many others within my age range to go on the offensive like I am. I have chosen the field of fire of culture to fight back in. I know that my spiritual gift is teaching and telling stories. So, what better way to facilitate that method of approach than to have a camera in a studio and tell a story of men and women that helped keep this republic or fight to save their own 100 or 1,000 years ago, so that this next fight can be won by this next generation that's coming up. And so we're motivated. Legoman Productions is the name of the company. Our website is active right now. We just went public with it at the 1A Film Fest, ran by Unredacted Media through Dave Sumrall. And you can actually go on 1afilmfest.com to see not just my announcement. I was wearing a tuxedo, so I looked even better than this.
I did see.
Yeah, but you can also see that we're not alone. There's a rising tide of Americans that not only want more of God and more of conservatism, but they also want to fight back against the enemy. And so, all hope is not lost. I'm convinced that the best is yet to come, and we are about to stop the death of the West. We're about to fix what was broken.
I'm gonna point out a few things that you said there that people may not catch, and one of those is that we're no longer sitting around being run over by the left or by the ones that don't want God to be glorified and in control. And that's one of the problems that we had. We were trained and raised as conservatives and Christian folks to just be meek. Be meek, and meekness that we were taught is not true biblical meekness, because meekness was defined as weakness. And one of the reasons that I like Trump a lot, and I didn't, truthfully, Robert, I didn't care much for him before he walked down or rode down the escalator and decided to run for president. But when I saw the cojones that were this big around, and him fighting back when they were throwing nails and hammers and bombs at him, and the people that had loved him before all of a sudden were his enemy. Yep. But then I saw him stand up and fight back. I'm like, heck yeah, man. That's what we've been missing, and that's what's being taught, and that's what folks like you, myself, and many other people are doing. And oh, by the way, there is a movement to replace Hollywood. And there's others that are doing similar things to you, even though you've got your own mission. I'm involved with one myself. So there's a movement to replace Hollywood. It needs to be replaced.
It does.
Hollywood is corrupt. It's demonic.
It's a virus that needs to be exterminated because it's just a vessel for demonic forces to enter the minds of the youth, and there's no other way to rationalize it. I mean, they worship Baal publicly. I mean, the old gods of antiquity didn't die just because you closed the book of the Bible, man. These false gods that we hear the names of, and these demons that we hear the names of in the Bible, they still walk the earth. They still puppeteer men and women to facilitate their needs. That's why child sacrifice is a thing. That's why abortion is a thing. That's why any of these deities that our ancestors were ordered to wipe out the followers of when they enter the promised land. There's a reason for that. And so God didn't ask the death of innocent men. God asks for the extermination of sin. And if you are in beholden of sin at the time, then that's on you, because we have been given numerous opportunities to turn back and redeem the way that we live through the example and sacrifice of Christ. So we're running out of time. And that's why I'm activated to the fullest of capacity. I don't live a single day of my life now without thinking, how can I contribute to the war effort of purifying my country from the rampant filth that has almost killed my nation through political correctness and through being nice. I'm sick of it, dude. I'm absolutely sick of it. I'm trying not to swear because I do that every once in a while when I get hyped up. But I can tell you one thing, that when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to the broken culture, just follow the money. It leads back to a single source. And this is what we're up against. There's a power struggle. but they're trying to supplant the one true God, and we are in the employment of Yahweh. And so I know that we are going to be successful. And even if we are to be thrown into a fiery furnace and we're not saved from it, I would rather not bow down to a golden idol, like my ancestors, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So that's what
Even
motivates me.
if he doesn't save me, yet will I not bend a knee.
Exactly. Even if he doesn't save me, I'm that pissed off. I'm that determined. And I'll tell you something else. If 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 more good men decided to do something, I wouldn't have had to have done this today. So
Yeah.
it's fallen. The sins of the father have definitely fallen on the son in more ways than one. But that's fine. The saculum has fallen on us to fix this, and just like the old scripture says, "Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Send me."
Well, don't get it twisted, and you've not, but I'm talking to the folks out there. Follow the money is where you're going to find the devil working. It's not just Hollywood. The music world is just as corrupt, maybe even more so. I don't know. Let's take a look at Lil Nas, whatever his name is.
Justin.
Yeah, it is, but he came out with a clean look and Old Town Road, and it was just just cool. And it wasn't a few months; they had him completely warped to the point where he was actively and openly serving the devil in everything that he did. So that's money, and he had to agree to it. They're not going to force him. Would they kill him? Maybe, but he had to agree to it. The dangle of money in front of you, the dangle of fame, the dangle of women, the dangle of drugs, the dangle of whatever is still used today, and it's drawing people in. And we've got to be a light. We've got to stand up and say no. And whether I do this the rest of my life and nobody knows who I am, whether I do this the rest of my life and I don't make a bunch of money, whether I do it and whatever, I don't care. The reason I'm here is because God said, Glenn, go do what I've told you to do. And I'm like, okay, yes, sir, let's go. So I want to come back. We're going to take a real quick break, Robert, because I've got a mission that I'm supporting right now. In fact, we talked about it 8 months ago, and it's now in fruition. So I need to show the audience something. We're getting ready to launch a new fundraiser for the Finish This Fight, Joshua's Journey. Y'all take a look at this.
So I had a 60 millimeter mortar that landed 3 feet in front of me, and so it didn't cook off. And so it technically they would consider it to be a dud, but it wasn't a dud. It had a broken propeller on it. I got pictures of it. I carry with me and stuff. It's about the size of a liter and a half ball, but it has kill radius about 25 meters, 20 to 25 meters. So basically, if that round would have went off, then confirmed dead would have been 20 to 25 meters. Been 31 months since I've been able to stand on even with a brace or being able to take one single step. So it's been 31 months to the day yesterday.
And then God leaned in and he said, you know what? You're going to do a foundation. You're going to be the one to help these boys and some girls, I'm sure, get to walking again, back on their feet.
It became so real when we physically came here and I physically got to see face to face to that unit. And knowing that, I mean, like I said, it's pretty much like an avatar. I felt like I, plugged in and we became one, like I was breathing with it, it's just incredible. I mean, I can't even imagine, I can't even describe the feeling that I have, but like, it was like deep down inside of me, it's like, you know what, I felt like I can fight again. I really am able to stand again, and I'm
Well, I guess somebody didn't want me to show the rest of that. Y'all just saw Joshua Holm. Joshua was a combat veteran out of Iraqi Freedom 2003, was wounded 3 times during his tour, has been fighting those wounds and the battle wounds for 22 years. Almost 3 years ago, he had a turn to the left, and he had a wound that completed and snapped his neck, paralyzed him from the chest down. And we had an opportunity a little over a month ago to take him to New York to fit him for that exoskeleton that you just saw. And he had a chance to walk again for the first time in almost 3 years. We're raising money to be looking for the fundraiser coming around, Walk for a Hero, Joshua's Journey. But in the meantime, go to givesendgo.com. Givesendgo.com/finish this fight. Donate. We've got $140,000 to raise just for this young man. And we want to do 10 more this year. That's $1.5 million. I'm going after some big money. I'm going after some sponsors. I'm going after some grants. We're going to make this take place because God said go do it. So here we are, Robert. I had to share that. And we've got the new 19-minute mini documentary coming out this week. Be looking for it. Finish this fight. Joshua's Journey. Going to release it this week. So let's come back to Robert Legoman. Brother, you're in the movie business now. You've written a book. You fought for this country. You've taught school. And it sounds to me like you didn't teach for too terribly long before January 6th took place. How long was that?
That was about 6 months.
Dude, you were a brand new teacher, brother.
Yeah. And the crazy thing, too, for me was after about a year and a half into my incarceration, I think it was a year and a half, I finally get my discovery, which is 100% illegal, in order to fight my case, and within the discovery, there's email traffic between FBI agents stating that, oh, we should arrest Robert Morse on the last day of school because we know it's going to hurt him more. So they knew how much I cared about teaching. They knew how much I loved the field, and they knew how much the students mattered to me. And they didn't care about the public safety. They didn't care about the threat to society that the imposter president claimed that I was. They just wanted to hurt me, and that's all the FBI had ever done, and might still be doing to this day. I hope the cash patel and Trump and everybody can clean it out. But as far as I'm concerned, this federal government is weaponized against its own people and individuals like me that are not willing to bend the knee and kiss the ring, take the vax and everything like this. And so, I'm in the movie business now because I've become too big, and what I have to say is too important to be limited to a single high school history classroom. And I'm confident that God's going to bless that effort, because none of this would have happened had it not been designed to bring to fruition my spiritual gifts, which are education, which is teaching. And so I'm confident in that. But I only had 6 months as a teacher, but I can't tell you how many offers I've had to teach at a school since then. I can't tell you how many times I've had people that have, asked me if I'm going to come back and what I teach in their community, what I teach in their state, because they see the potential that I have, the way that I've allowed God to move through me and use this to unite our people against our one true enemy, which is, the lowercase g God of this age that is annotated within my favorite chapter of the Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, who's blinded the mind of the non-believers. But I want to capitalize on my gifts and put them as many places as possible. And a movie is the best place to do that.
Movies are pretty cool because they grab people's attention. That's why we did this one. Let's talk about that. So 6 months or so as a teacher, you obviously went to Washington on January 6th because you had a strong belief that the election had been stolen, that there were things that had taken place that shouldn't have taken place. And so you showed up to peacefully protest and to be your part as an American.
Hold on. I just want to stop you there. One of the things that a lot of people like to say is that we went to just protest the stolen election, but that was one of a myriad of reasons why we went. I mean, you think about what they did to us and the rights that they had, I guess, essentially stripped from us without any kind of court proceedings whatsoever. We were all put on house arrest illegally.
Oh yeah,
over a government-made bioweapon that the United States and the Chinese governments colluded to create and unleash upon the world. I mean, so they put us all on house arrest with any kind of guilty verdict. Then we watched George Soros fund the burning of every single one of our cities through Black Lives Matter. And then yet, if Christians want to go to church, or if I want to go to the mom and pop hardware store, that's called a super spreader event. It's just absolutely, the hypocrisy was ridiculous. People were dying left and right from a man-made virus, and then the vaccine that nobody had the guts or time to test. is now being injected into people, and we're watching people die faster from the vaccine than we are from coronavirus. I
Right.
mean, you're telling me that I'm gonna allow something to be injected in me that hasn't even been tested, and yet when I watch people that have gotten the vaccine, you can put a magnet up to their arm and that's cool. Like what? Like
Yeah.
who do you think I am? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like this is crazy. And then so on top of all of that, the economy was crazy. Businesses were closing for the first time. People weren't allowed to go to weddings, to funerals, to the birth of their child. Like this
Uh-huh.
wasn't just about an election. The election was the breaking of the camel's back with an enormous beam of nine that was dropped on the back of the American people. And so we had had enough for a ton of reasons.
Well, and thanks for pointing that out. You're right. I may have misspoken that because we focus on that because of the Trump and the election and things, but we could see our country going to hell in a handbasket. In fact, I wrote a
Quick.
song and released it in 2021 called No New Normal, which is talking about exactly what you're talking about. There's a
Right.
war going on that we cannot see, and it's happening all around us.
Yeah.
So it was time to step up. It was time to take a stand. I don't think that the people are tired of hearing it. And if they are, I don't really give a crap right now because I wasn't at J6. I know a lot of people and I've interviewed a lot of people that were. Talk to me about what happened in your instance.
Well, on January 6th, it was exactly the way that it was described. So there was the singing, there was the dancing, there was the hugging. I mean, people were hanging out, like any other Trump rally. I was over by the Ellipse where the speech was going to be held, and it was awesome. It was like the coolest. It was like a political Woodstock, where people were hanging out, having a good time, waiting to hear that Trump was going to save the day, and that was the anticipation. And so, with that being said, people were under the impression that, the election was going to be, the steal was going to be stopped, because before that day was called January 6th, it was the Stop the Steal rally, if you recall. And so, people were excited about that. And then, as the crowd migrates over to the Capitol, because we were under the impression there was going to be a second set of speeches, now that's when things get nuts. So I did not personally run in until I watched the biggest pro-Trump Asian demographic that I'd ever seen in my life congregate at the Capitol, who had personally fled from communist China and were handing out and the CCP flyers the day of,
Uh-huh.
get targeted by the Capitol Police and flashbangs shot in the faces of their old and their young. And
Yeah.
that's when I ran in, and so it was a lobster trap. People were lured into that event of those days. And I mean, and on top of that, of it being the biggest bar fight in broad daylight you'd ever seen in your entire life, there was also people playing the bagpipes and drummer boys.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it was like an absolute battle. You had people on megaphones saying, "This is it, Patriots. It's now or never. If you don't do something today, you're going to lose your country forever." And then because of the mad congregation of people, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people, nobody's cell phones worked. And
Uh-huh.
so the crisis actors within the crowd knew that. And so they were running up to different people in the crowd saying, "Hey, every single Capitol in America is being stormed. Hey, the CNN building is getting stormed. This is happening. We're rising up. America is rising up. Let's all do this. Don't hold back." And so they had been training for something like this to that degree for a very long time. They had a script, they had a uniform, they had a plan. I went to jail with an individual who admitted that he was passing out PCP laced cigarettes and handing them out to peaceful protesters. I went to jail with somebody who admitted that he was a part of Antifa and testified before his FBI interrogation that he was a proud communist and wanted to get Trump supporters shot. I went to jail with somebody who was a lieutenant of Antifa from the Oregon chapter who personally had 200 Antifa members shipped into the DC area the day of January 6th to raise hell. I mean, you can't tell me that there weren't people there hoping that it would become what it was going to become. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it was an absolute setup. I was emotionally baited into it and I paid the price. However, what men wanted for evil, God always intended for good. So I'm a better version of myself now. And they've made a monster out of me because now, with the help of your viewers and everybody else, we're about to take this country back. We're going to put honorable stories back into theaters where they belong, and we're going to save the sinking ship of a nation.
Well, and I say this pretty often. They pissed off the wrong guy whenever what happened to me, and I think the same thing happened to you. They pissed off the wrong guy.
Oh, yeah.
But people, what people might have a hard time understanding. I want you to imagine this. I'm talking to you out there that's watching this. I want you to imagine this. You're a young high school history teacher that's not been out of the military for very long. Was trained as a ranger, trained to combat. You're in a protest. Everybody's having a good time and excited about the possibilities that we're finally going to get past this crap that we've been seeing going on. And all of a sudden, DC police start tear gassing and flashbanging a group of helpless.
Yep.
Let's just call it what it is: helpless, not armed. You know, they talk about an insurrection. There was nobody armed at that place. They were helpless, and you see that happen. And I think maybe the first thing might have been a little bit of shock. Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Disbelief.
Yeah, is this really going on?
Right.
And then,
if you think about it, for the last year, we were the ones that were saying thin blue line, back the blue. We support the police to try to counteract the anti-cop attitude that Black Lives Matter and every race baiting organization out there was slamming down our throats, that the police were bad. We took the stand to back up our police officers. And then after a year of doing that, 6 days into 2021, I'm watching police officers turn their guns on the very people who supported them and shoot and fight the people holding thin blue line flags. So tell me how that would not infuriate you as a man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, one of the Proud Boys invited me to go with him when J6 took place. I had to check in my spirit that something was going to take place, and I didn't go. And I think about that. I've thought about that a lot. I thought, well, Glenn, were you a coward? No, you know what? God's got a different design for each and every one of us. And I wasn't to be in that jail. I'd already been in a jail because I would have been in the middle of it. And dude, I'm an old guy at this point now, Robert. I'm 58 years old next month. But I see something like that happen, and I'm taking somebody down at the knees. Yeah. I know how I'd react. There's not a doubt in my mind. I know how I'd react. So I'm thankful that I listened to God and didn't go, because he's put his plan in place for me. So I want people to understand, yes, it was a setup. Yes, it was baited. In fact, I just saw something today, Robert. The chief of police there in D.C. has testified several times before the subcommittees and in different places, saying there were many, many, many FBI in the crowd that was instigating this. Never let it come out, but it's starting to.
It's starting to come out. And people are going to feel real stupid for, believing a television set and a stranger within the black mirror to inform them that I'm some kind of domestic terrorist after knowing me for decades, and knowing that that's not true. And our time will come. The only thing that we can do now is to bear this burden honorably. When we are tasked with a larger burden, we don't ask for it to be taken off our shoulders. We ask for broader shoulders. And so it's fallen to us. That's okay. I think that God is going to benefit our efforts in order to save this sinking ship of a country. And, the wheel of time will continue. We are going to decide whether or not America will live or die. And within my lifetime, I've already made my choice. America is not going to die on my watch. And I will do everything within my power to make sure that my kids, whenever they arrive, understand what freedom is. Because if they don't, that responsibility falls on me and everybody who is willing to sit on their hands. And so, I don't think you were a coward, my friend. Because you've been fighting this fight for a long time. The cowards are the Republicans and the conservatives and the patriots who talk a big game, but when it's time for patriot shit to be done, they're nowhere to be found. So That's what a coward is.
Well, the patriot shit you talk about is not cheap. It costs. It costs time. It costs money. It costs energy. It costs reputation.
It costs the things that you can't take with you once you die.
Why
would you want to hang on to them?
No, 100%. You're right. But again, I go back to the complacency that we've been brought up in. And this last many years, the last 9, years now, is starting to bring some people out of complacency. I was brought out from being arrested and losing my freedom and finding out that that could actually take place in the United States of America. And it happened to me 4 years almost before it happened to you guys.
Well, the interesting thing about that, though, too, is that, I mean, and your story wasn't mainstream, but we've known to a degree how sinister this government has been. But it was only until January 6th that the madness within the government's corruption was exposed to a larger scale. And I think that we had never known. We had never known. White America didn't know what Black America was under subjugation from Uncle Sam for, and whether or not these individuals were guilty of a crime or not, the way that they are slammed through court, the way that the prosecution knows no one will defend them, and the way that the judge just packs jails loaded with African American men and women because the jail and Bureau of Prisons is a hell of a racket and you can make a lot of money out of. That is unconstitutional. That is wrong, and that's what needs to change. So there needs to be prison reform. And like we said earlier in this program, you need to follow the money. Why are our judges owning stock within jails and then sending people to go to jail so they can get a kickback from it? That's insane.
Yeah, there's so many wild hair to follow on that. And the difference between knowing here and knowing here a lot of times is experience.
Yes.
Going through it or seeing it close enough to you that somebody went through it. And so for me, I was isolated for 23 days without the ability to have an attorney or even contact anybody.
Yes.
23 days. Nobody knew where I was at. My kids thought I'd die. So I experienced something similar.
That's why we clicked so well. That's why we
how can this happen in the country that I fought for? And it took me coming back after 73 days and losing everything, including my eyesight in my right eye, to say, man, I thought my country had my back. That is not the truth. And spending a year, Robert, I hope you didn't go through this. I know some of the guys did. Spending a year not caring whether I lived or died before God gave me my purpose and put a fire back in my heart. So that's why I'm on your side, baby. I'm on your page. I get it, unlike maybe a lot of people do. So
well, I want to say one last thing before we run out of time. I've learned now through my time invested in the Word that the names that we give to emotions like fear, rage, happiness, peace are actually the names of spirits. So there's numerous times where it says in the Bible, let the spirit of peace be upon you. And so if you think about it now, cowardice, we understand, or fear might be the name of a spirit, and people can act out of cowardice, out of the possession of cowardice. But I also think that the spirit of cowardice or of fear or of rage or of lust or whatever, the 7 deadly sins, you name it, can be exercised from somebody through the way, the truth, and the life. But if the truth is cut off, then cowardice will reign supreme because people are unaware of any other option. So in Legoman Productions, we are offering that alternative so that stories of courage and of valor and of heartache and characters under pressure but still decided to do the right thing can be shown to the public. And the reason why there's so many cowards today in America specifically is because for a long time, like we had mentioned earlier in this interview, in between the dichotomy of nature versus nurture, cowardice has been nurtured among the American people. And it's been nurtured through Hollywood. It's been nurtured through music. Cowardice, the spirit of cowardice, has been invited to lay rest upon the people of America like a parasite among the host. And at Legoman Productions, we are going to exile the spirit of cowardice among the American people so that they can learn that there's a better way to live and it's worth fighting and dying for. And hopefully that we can stand shoulder to shoulder together at the end of times when Armageddon happens and say, we understand whose side we're on. There it is. That's the site, Legoman Productions. You'll meet the team. You'll understand what we're fighting towards. You'll get the updates as we make this movie and many more to come. But this is the beginning of the best that America has yet to experience. So you see our socials, you see our Give, Send, Go. You can even click on that meet the team portion. You can see the crew we've assembled. I mean, it's just great, where you can see that we're not alone here. There's people that are willing to fight, that are willing to join arms together and make a difference. And so this is something that is going to rally a lot of people together, and I'm excited about it because it's worth the effort. It's worth the sacrifice. Our ancestors thought so, so why shouldn't we?
Tamara called me 3 weeks or so before the 1A Film Fest, and I just couldn't get there in time. I was going to show some of the Finish This Fight diary of a pissed off American soldier, but it didn't work out. So we'll figure out something next time. You got a good group of people there. Some of my other people were there. Doc Pete Chambers was there. Did you get a chance to meet him and get to know him?
I did. That was cool.
What an amazing guy, man.
That's right.
And Robert and Jamie Agee, good people. They were there. Cowboy couple, I call them. Good folks, man. Good folks. Well, congratulations on what you're doing, brother. I know we've got a little bit of time left. If you've got anything you'd like to share, I don't know if you'd like to talk about what happened in the jail. I don't know if you want to talk about what you've got with your book that you've got out. Let me just give you the floor. What do you want to chat about, my friend?
Sure. Well, I can also say that, the one book that I do have out called One Question Remains was written in prison, and it was smuggled out of prison. It's available now on Amazon, and you can find that. It's essentially a book that can help dissect what January 6th was, which was none other than a lobster trap, and explains the attitudes that many men and women had the day of and why we were so upset, regardless of how cold it was that day. And it's loaded with scripture. It's loaded with quotes from our founding fathers. It provides an opportunity for us to understand how to make America great again. And we argue that the only way to do that is to make America godly again, which is the exact same acronym. But I have a second book that's about to come out. And because of the fact that in the first book, I only included about 3 paragraphs about myself, the demand now has been that, hey, I want to learn more about what it was like behind bars. So now I'm coming out with a book very soon about 41 short stories about, the events and the adventures and things that happened to me while I was incarcerated. And that's going to be the one that everybody's going to want to read and listen to, because some stories will make you laugh, some stories will make you cry, some stories will rev you up, and some stories will let you know that these January 6ers really went through hell. And but it's something that is necessary to read, because hopefully it's never repeated. I mean, this book has the opportunity to become something equivalent of like the Anne Frank diaries. Because it tells the story, and it makes a man want to believe in God, and it talks about miracles, and it exposes wisdom that you can only derive after having spent hours in the Word, if your life depended on it. And so that book's about to drop here soon. I can't release the title of it though, because there's some legal issues involved. But there is a second book coming out, and then join with us at Legoman Productions. We could use all the help we can get. Because we are reclaiming culture and restoring heroes, and we're going to stop the death of the West. And so it's all based off of my trust in God. I wish that other people trusted in God the way that I do, and if more people did, we wouldn't be here right now.
Legoman with two G's in the Lego, legomanproductions.com. Y'all go check that out. Go check it out. Click the links, see what this is all about. This guy here went through some hell. I'm sure you've got some stories. Mine aren't all that good, honestly, Robert. I spent 73 days in an 8x10, 23 hours and half a day.
That's no joke.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to really interact with very many people. I do have one funny story, and my producer was pretty pissed off that I didn't tell him that when we were making the movie. But so for 20 Look, I'll tell you a funny story, and then we can get on with yours. But 23 days, I didn't have any telephone numbers. They wouldn't let me access my cell phone to call anybody, and nobody knew where I was at. So I was shackled hand and foot in the back of a van and taken up north to North Carolina. So I did what Glenn does, and I just talked with the jailers and got them to like me. One of them was a black lady, probably late 20s, and I saw her. She was on her phone one day. She was on Facebook, and I said, "Ma'am, are you on Facebook?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Could you do me a favor?" "Well, what do you want?" I said, "Go to your messenger. I want you to look up a guy named Kenny Dietrich." She's like, "Why?" I said, "Because I need a telephone number." And I told her the story that I hadn't gotten any. And I said, "If you'll tell him this story, He ain't going to believe it unless you tell him this story. Tell him that I've got Glenn Baker incarcerated in the back of a van going to jail, and he needs a telephone number. And here's how you'll know it's really him. Because one day, many years ago, when we were on a car lot, you told some people to go find Glenn. And the way you'd find him is he was standing flat-footed underneath a Dodge Neon.
Okay. Wow.
Nobody could make that up because it truly did happen. I've heard every short joke in the world, Robert, but and she did that. She actually did it. And that's how I got my first phone number while I was incarcerated, was talking to jailer into Facebook messaging, a buddy of mine. So
that's impressive.
Well, you know what? When you're in sales, baby, you learn how to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, story for story, because we got
Let's do it.
So when I was initially incarcerated, and this is coming from the book too, so you can skip this chapter when you see it. There's a lot of guys that were not joking about the concept of suicide, and a lot of them were considering it. And you had the whole weight of the federal government. Their families were abandoning them, plus the enemy of our souls bearing down on the first wave of January 6ers. People were going to die, and they were going to do it themselves to make the hurt stop. So a friend of mine and I, Jeff Sable, he and I got together, and we thought, you know what? A good way to fix this is by making comedy and talent shows. And I coined them Hopium Dens, and I designed the first Hopium Den to have 10 acts. And it was a comedy and talent show designed to uplift and boost the morale of those that we were incarcerated with. And as a result, a lot of people got excited, and we set a date and time. And, from the Army, that you cannot ask anybody to do something that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. So in order to debut these Hopium Dens, I did the first act, and I created a ridiculous costume, and I sang "I'll Make a Man Out of You" with crowd participation from the Mulan cartoon to kick off the Hopium Den. And that really set the jovial tone, and it was a night that I'll never forget. And it was really cool because the atmosphere was so positive that it was almost like tangible. The happiness was tangible in the room, and we had beaten back the specter of death that was tormenting our souls through laughter. And I learned that God is in laughter. And so the Hopium Dens is part of the January 6th lore, that if you were to ask anybody that was in the first wave of January 6th, that was at the DC Gulag, about the Hopium Dens, they would stop and they'd look at you and they'd smile.
You know what? You're right. God is in laughter. In fact, he's got quite the sense of humor. He made me, as a full-grown man, 5'4" on a good day with a 19.5-inch neck. I actually have to go to Big and Tall and buy dress shirts and have them all cut down to fit me everywhere else so that it'll fit right here. He's got a sense of humor, baby. I'm telling you, he does.
That's hilarious.
Well, Robert, man, I appreciate you being on today. You guys, go check this guy out. He and I had a good chat in D.C. earlier this year. Got to know each other a little bit. He is involved with some godly stuff, not just godly, gutsy stuff. He stood up to the man. He paid the price. How long were you incarcerated, Robert? How long were you in?
3.5 years.
See, man, that just blows my mind. I went numb at 73 days. I was in, like I said, an 8x10 for 23.5 hours a day for 73 days. I honestly don't even know how to respond to that, knowing for 3.5 years that you were being incarcerated wrongly. Y'all, I want you to really consider what happened. Really consider. The left screams, well, they were terrorists, they were radicals, they were insurrectionists. Nobody's ever been charged with insurrection, not one time.
No.
They weren't killing anybody. They weren't burning anything. It just was fighting back from the instigation that took place when they were there to rally.
Yep.
It's such a hypocrisy that the year before, the summer of love, billions of dollars of damage. I don't know how many people died, many, including police officers.
Yeah.
How many hometown businesses were destroyed? How many federal buildings were destroyed? And yet it was mostly a peaceful protest. Y'all, it blows my mind. Go support Robert Legoman Morse, Legoman Productions. Brother, I'm going to have you on again one of these days when we get this next book out. And I want you to stick around in the green room for just a moment. We'll chat on the other end. Y'all, tomorrow, Lego Man, thank you for being with me. Tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern time, I have got the White Rabbit. All I know is his name's Eric, the White Rabbit. Y'all have seen him on TikTok. You've seen his posts on X. The guy's got a tremendous amount of influence. He's a stand-up dude. He's wild, man. I'm going to have to take me a double shot of Red Bull before I come on tomorrow just to keep up with him. So join me tomorrow at 3:30 for our Thursday edition Finish This Fight podcast on the Patriot Prayer Network right here on this channel, wherever you're viewing it. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's X, maybe it's Rumble. But join me back here tomorrow, 3:30. White Rabbit's going to be here. Uncle Glenn loves you, and I am out.
Forward, halt, left, 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 right. Your left, 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 right.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call before it hit the news. No clue what they were about to do.
No, the website has